Of all the things a man can fear, failure, death, rejection, there is one fear he will never say aloud, not even to himself. It is the fear of his own shadow. Not the childish kind that dances on walls or flickers behind his steps in the sunlight. No, the shadow Jung spoke of was far more intimate. It lives inside every man. It is his rage, his lust, his deceit, his cowardice, his hunger for control. It is the self he hides beneath performance and politeness, the one that does not speak but leaks, in sideways comments, in silent resentment, in a smile that doesn't reach the eyes. And perhaps the most dangerous man isn't the one who embraces this shadow, but the one who doesn't know it's there. Carl Jung warned of such men, men who repress so deeply that even they believe in their own masks. They call themselves nice, respectable, civilized, but the more they insist they are only light, the more their darkness festers. You see it in the man who explodes after years of pretending he's fine, in the man who manipulates subtly, always claiming innocence, in the man who romanticizes love but cannot tolerate intimacy. The shadow, Jung said, is what you refuse to see in yourself, and what you refuse to see, you are ruled by. That is why so many women find themselves hurt by men who seem good on paper, because the most repressed shadow is often the most violent when it breaks free. This is the man every woman should fear, not because he is obviously cruel, but because he is unaware of his own capacity for destruction. He thinks his feelings are facts. He thinks his silence is strength. He thinks love means being worshipped, not being known. And the irony is, he genuinely believes he's doing everything right. But women feel the contradiction. They feel the way his energy shifts when they challenge him. They feel the coldness that follows emotional honesty. They feel how tightly he controls the narrative, how quickly they become the villain the moment they stop being agreeable. And it's not that he wants to be dangerous, it's that he never met his shadow. So now it speaks for him. A man who hasn't faced his shadow will unconsciously use others to carry it. He will project his shame onto his partner, his rage onto his children, his insecurities onto the world. He will blame and detach, seduce and abandon, dominate and disappear, not because he's evil, but because he's unintegrated. And integration is terrifying. It means he must stop pretending. It means he must look at himself without flinching, to admit that he is not always the victim, that sometimes he was the one who betrayed, the one who ghosted, the one who gaslit, the one who wanted power more than peace. And Jung didn't tell men to become saints. He told them to become whole. And wholeness includes the parts you were taught to deny, the lust that doesn't care about consequences, the anger that masks deep grief, the hunger to possess, to destroy, to win at all costs. When these urges are hidden, they leak out sideways and wreak havoc. But when they are acknowledged, when they are brought into the light, not to be indulged, but to be understood, they lose their grip. A man who knows his darkness is far safer than a man who denies it, because he no longer needs to act it out. He can sit with it, learn from it, own it. But here's the real danger. Our culture teaches men to be performers, not pilgrims. They are rewarded for stoicism, for control, for dominance. They are punished for introspection, for nuance, for emotional vulnerability. So the shadow grows quietly. And so it is the body count of relationships ruined, of trust broken, of women left wondering if it was their fault. It was not. It never is. Because you cannot love a man who has not yet learned to carry himself. You can only try to love him and suffer the weight he refuses to bear. And this is where many women get caught, in the hope that love will awaken him, that her softness will soften him, that if she just holds on long enough, he will evolve. But you would say, beware of becoming a mirror for a man who refuses to look. You will disappear. You will shrink. You will lose yourself trying to save someone who does not believe he needs saving. Because
The only man who can face his shadow is the man who chooses to, and that choice is never made in comfort. It's made in collapse, in rock bottom, in the moment when the pain of unconsciousness finally becomes louder than the fear of self-examination.
When that collapse comes, when the illusion breaks, when the job, the woman, the validation no longer soothe him, a man is finally left alone with what he's been running from. Himself. No audience, no applause, just a raw truth he's never had the stomach to digest. This is the most sacred and terrifying moment in a man's life, when everything that once made him feel powerful is gone, and he must choose between retreating into denial or stepping into the underworld of his own psyche. Carl Jung called it the individuation process, but to most men, it feels like dying. Because it is. It's the death of the mask, the death of the narrative, the death of the half-life that was built on pretending. And in that death, a strange thing happens. He begins to hear the voice he buried beneath obligation, beneath bravado, beneath other people's expectations. It doesn't shout, it whispers. It says things that are not easy to hear. It shows him the ways he has hurt others, the ways he abandoned his younger self, the moments he betrayed his own instincts for approval. But if he can stay, if he doesn't run, doesn't numb, doesn't blame, something ancient begins to awaken in him. Not a new version of himself, but the original, the one that existed before the world told him who he had to be. It's no coincidence that Jung compared this journey to myths, to dragons, to descents into the abyss, because a man must lose everything he thought was his strength to find the deeper strength that cannot be taken. He must let go of being the hero in someone else's story and become the author of his own. This isn't about abandoning women. It's about no longer using them to escape from himself. Because when a man treats a woman like the savior, he turns love into a transaction. When he sees her as his emotional home before he's built one within, he turns intimacy into dependence. And when she finally refuses to carry his shadow for him, he calls her cold, difficult, disloyal. But she's not the problem. His projection is. Jung taught that projection is the enemy of intimacy, and yet it's how most men begin their relationships, especially with women who are emotionally open. He sees her light and forgets he has his own. He sees her empathy and mistakes it for permission. He sees her boundaries and takes them as rejection. And then he either idealizes her or resents her, but never truly sees her, because he cannot yet see himself. The man who fears his own shadow will always try to control the light around him, and when he cannot, he leaves, or worse, he stays and punishes. But the man who has walked through his own fire no longer needs to burn others to feel alive. He does not romanticize women as a way to avoid his own emotional labor. He does not need constant reassurance, nor does he withhold affection to feel powerful. He has felt the weight of his darkness and survived, and that survival changes him, makes him gentler, not weaker, slower, not softer. He no longer confuses vulnerability with weakness. He knows the courage it takes to stand bare in front of another soul and say, I am not perfect, but I am real. I have loved poorly in the past, but I am learning. I used to hide, but now I show up, even when I'm afraid. This is the man who cannot be owned but can be trusted. The man who no longer seduces with lies but connects with presence. The man who has looked in the mirror and not looked away. Women do not fear men like this. They feel safe with him. Not because he is tame, but because he is honest about his wildness. Not because he has no shadow, but because he has made peace with it. Because when a man integrates his shadow, he doesn't lose his edge. He sharpens it into something sacred. Something that can cut through illusion, not through people. And that's the final paradox Jung left us with. That the more a man confronts his inner chaos, the more order he brings to his world. The more he accepts his flaws, the more trust he earns. The more human he becomes, the more divine he seems. Because wholeness is not perfection, it's truth. Raw, unfiltered, uncomfortable truth. And in a world full of men pretending to be invincible, there is nothing more magnetic or masculine than a man who no longer hides.
So what then do we make of the man who refuses the journey? The one who avoids his shadow by perfecting his mask? The one who says all the right things but cannot sit still in silence? The one who performs empathy without ever touching his own wounds? He looks successful. He's well-liked, polished, reliable. But there is a weight behind his eyes, a quiet exhaustion in his smile. You'll notice it when things get real, when conflict surfaces, when intimacy deepens, when vulnerability is called for. That's when the cracks appear, not in his schedule or his goals, but in his soul. Because no matter how well you fake it, you cannot outrun the man you really are. This is the man Jung warned about, the one whose shadow governs him without his consent. Because the shadow you refuse to face does not disappear, it takes the wheel. It shows up in your relationships, your addictions, your need to dominate, your fear of softness. It shows up in how you talk to your father, in how you leave your partner before she can leave you, in how you work 80 hours a week so you never have to feel. The most dangerous man is not the violent one, it's the numb one. The man who cannot access his own grief and so inflicts it on others unconsciously. The man who's never cried and so cannot comfort. The man who cannot say, "I'm scared," and so becomes cruel instead. But that man doesn't need judgment. He needs initiation. And this is what modern culture fails to provide. We hand men titles, jobs, responsibilities, but no rites of passage. We tell them to grow up, but never show them how. We expect them to be emotionally available while mocking their sensitivity. We want their strength, but flinch at their sadness. And so, most men stay frozen somewhere between boyhood and manhood, not because they're incapable, but because no one ever told them the pain they carry is not a defect, it's the doorway. This is what Jung understood, that the work of becoming a man is not linear and it is not external. It is a spiral inward, a stripping away, a remembering. Not of social roles or macho archetypes, but of the original self, the one you were before the world shamed you into forgetting. Every man, deep down, remembers that self, in dreams, in music, in heartbreak, in moments when he's so still he almost hears it breathing. That self does not crave dominance, it craves wholeness, and the path to it is brutal, beautiful, and necessary. Not every man will take that path. Some will live and die inside the persona they built to survive. Some will chase power and praise and miss the sacred ache beneath it all. Some will never look into the mirror long enough to see their father's silence in their own. But for those who do, the reward is not applause, it is peace. The peace that comes from no longer needing to prove anything. The peace of walking into a room and not having to be the most impressive, the loudest, or the strongest. The peace of knowing you can hold your own heart and someone else's without needing to run or rescue. The man every woman should fear is not the one with scars. It's the one who pretends he has none. The one who turns love into control because he doesn't understand surrender. The one who uses charm as camouflage. The one who mistakes possession for passion, silence for strength, and emotional withholding for leadership. But the man who has walked through fire, who has stood naked before his own soul and said, "I will not abandon you again," that man is not safe because he is passive. He is safe because he is whole. And a whole man does not need to conquer. He creates, he protects, he listens. And if love is offered, he doesn't run, he honors it. Carl Jung did not leave us a manual, he left us a mirror. And if you dare to look into it, really look, you won't just see your father's wounds. You won't just see the boy who was never hugged, the teenager who was mocked, the man who pretended to be fine. You'll see something older,
something sacred, something wild and untamed that was never meant to be civilized, only integrated. And when you make peace with that part of yourself, when you stop fearing it and start listening to it, you'll realize you were never broken, just buried, just waiting. Not for a woman, not for a mentor, but for yourself. And that, brother, is the only man the world truly needs. Not more perfect men, but more present ones. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next one.